Hola amigos, welcome to the Balearic Brunch live from Pikes. I'm Andy Wilson, your host for the next 2 hours. Myself and radio guest house Mark Broadbent are the hosts here at Poolside at Pikes every Tuesday for the Balearic Brunch. With our live broadcast from 1 till 3 on IBIZA Sonica and Mixcloud Live for Pikes by Bombay Sapphire. Today, a special show. In the second hour, our guest is Greg Wilson, a DJ that I've been following for over 40 years. When I started going clubbing in Manchester back in the early 80s. Greg is here playing at Pikes tonight for a party by the Pool, the DJ agency. Great lineup. And Greg has also recently published a book, and we're going to be talking about the book and playing some tracks which are featured in it. The Discotheque Archives is the name of the book, and that is going to be in just under an hour's time. Greg Wilson in conversation with me. But first up, I'm going to play some music. Lots of good new stuff around at the moment. It's been an amazing year for music. Starting off with a track from the latest album by the brilliant 𝐃𝐲 Soul. It's a Balearic Brunch by Bombay Sapphire, live from Pikes.
You got nothing on me.
New from Manchester's A Certain Ratio. Been around even longer than me, and that is from a 2023 EP. It's called. Nice simple title, Day by Day.
I remember when we first met. You gave me love that I won't regret. You gave me love that I'll never forget. Everything is gonna be alright. I'll give you all of my love tonight. Everything is gonna be alright tonight. Well,
my favourite reggae vocalist, Sugar Minott. Passed away a few years ago, but that's a previously unreleased track by him, a cover version of Aretha Franklin's One Step Ahead, on a new compilation album released on the brilliant Daptone Records out of Brooklyn, New York. It's all productions by Victor Axelrod. Album is called If You Ask Me To, and some beautiful kind of retro reggae on there, including that Sugar Minott track. Before that, we had a new release on Athens of the North, fab label out of Edinburgh. Releases some great new music, but also specialises in unearthing lost soul classics like that one. That was by Ace in the Hole, called What About Love. We started the show off with Cleo Sol from her lovely new album called Heaven. Track was Nothing on Me, and then it was a certain ratio with Day by Day. This is a track I was playing last year, but it's just been re-released on vinyl on Ross Allen's Foundation Music label. It's Greg Foates, who played here with us a few months back at Pikes. He was over on the island to do a live concert remixing Lady Blackbird. This is Collage. You're listening to the Balearic Brunch by Bombay Sapphire, live on Ibiza Sonica through till 3 o'clock. And the second hour of the show today is going to be a little bit different from what we usually do. We're going to have some great music as ever, but I'm going to be chatting with Greg Wilson about the music that he selected to play for us today. All of it featured in his excellent book, Discotheque Archives. That's coming up in about 40 minutes' time.
You wouldn't have to think twice. I know inside that you were just my type. When there were two hearts in this house, but one broke, yeah. You got just what I've been looking for. Come back, baby, I'll give you the best and more. You got just what I've been looking for. Come back, baby, I'll give you the best and more.
Yeah, the wonderful Lou Hayter is going to be playing here at Pikes tonight.
Remember when you used to hold me tight? It doesn't matter if the is there are raindrops falling on my head without you, without you. You got just what I've been looking for. Come back, baby, I'll give you the best and more. You got just what I've been looking for. Come back, baby, I'll give you the best and more. Now I'm walking in the rain without you. Now I'm walking in the rain. Now I'm walking in the rain without you. Now I'm walking in the rain.
Lou Hayter, and as well as a fantastic recording artist and singer, she's also a great DJ, as she will be playing here at Pikes tonight as part of the Pools special party with Greg Wilson, Matty J, Ben Terry, Snow, Amos, Jacob Amos, and more. And Greg is going to be joining me in about 35 minutes time. This, by the way, is the new single from Mild Life. Playing the radio edit because the main edit is very long. It's called Return to Centaurus. Also a great remix by Prince Thomas. Brand new music from those Australians, Mild Life. That's called Return to Centaurus, and I think there's an album on its way. Here's the first new track in a few years from Murd, Paul Murphy, the man behind the great Claremont 56 labels, and Leng. Two new tracks. This one is called Katana Boy, little EP called In the Garden of Mindfulness. You can find it on Bandcamp. Yeah, that's a new release from Mud. 2 tracks. That one called Katana Boy on 𝐷𝐿 56. Paul Murphy's label. Paul Murphy is Mud. A great album I've been playing a lot of the last few weeks on Hell Yeah Recordings by Aura Safari. This one is Magic Melbeck. Coming up in about 25 minutes time, we're going to be in conversation with Greg Wilson, live from Pikes on the Balearic Brunch by Bombay Sapphire, ahead of Greg's, I think it's his debut in Freddy's tonight. Might be wrong about that. Also playing in there Lou Hayter, and Matty J and Ben Terry. Taking over the poolside and the Sunset Terrace with lots of artists from the Pool Agency this afternoon and tonight. Yeah, very good album on Hell Yeah Recordings from Aura Safari. That track, Magic Malba. Or Malbec, is it? Malbe. Anyway, next up I'm going to play a track from the Heels and Souls label, because Heels and Souls are on the island. I think they're playing here on Sunday. They're here as part of the Beat Hotel, which is hosting its final party along with the Pikes on Sunday crew this coming Sunday. Yeah, Heels and Souls, as well as being two DJs, is also a record label, specialises in unearthing and releasing lost gems. This one originally from the early 80s. A lot of their music is like street soul. This one is Flair, Chasing the Rain from the early 80s. Heels and Souls in Ibiza for the Beat Hotel. I'm playing here at Pikes this weekend. So this is a release on Heels and Souls label. The Heels and Soul guys over in Ibiza for the Beat Hotel, which closes its 5-day kind of festival, I guess you'd call it, roaming festival here in Ibiza, with a party in collaboration with Pikes on Sundays. But in the meantime, here at Pikes, been telling you already about today's event with the DJs and artists from the Pool Agency. Tomorrow is closing of Jaguar's Utopia party. Poolside in the daytime, Camilo Miranda welcomes the guys from London's Brilliant Corners. Then on Thursday, it's Cosmic Pineapple. Kim Booth bringing lots of great music and all kinds of wellness, cosmic-related activities to the whole grounds of Pikes. Wonderful event. That's on Thursday. Okay, a few closing parties here this week. On Friday, it's going to be Ushi with Santana Ush and lots of her crew. Daytime is Lova, Darren P and Sonica's own Milou. And then on Saturday, it's Pikes House Party. Maxi Sound System and PBR Street Gang back on the islands. And then Sunday, as I've already mentioned, it's the finale of Beat Hotel, joining forces with Pikes on Sunday. Heels and Souls playing Dickie Trisco, Willie Graff, the Brothers Grimm, and there's a back-to-back from Shanti Celeste and Roy Perez and Louise Chen also here. That's this Sunday for Pikes on Sunday with the Beat Hotel. And I'm going to be playing for the Beat Hotel tomorrow. And we're going to be broadcasting it live on Sonica between 2 and 4 in the afternoon before we head to Costa La Torre for the first of the evening broadcast.
What is this I owe you? Never gonna take another. I told you I am.
This is a track off a new EP by 𝐅𝐿 𝐃𝐢𝐚𝐥 or 𝐅𝐿 𝐃𝐢𝐚𝐥, never quite sure how to pronounce it. The track's called Camino. It's their third EP, or maybe it's the fourth. And I believe they are coming to Pikes as part of Darren Bell of 𝐲𝐻𝐿's all-day event on Monday the 9th of October. Darren's going to be guest on this show on the 10th, which will be the last of our live broadcasts. And that track is called Camino. Talking too much again. I had that one, nice little mix lined up for that, but blew it with the chat. Not to worry. This is very fresh. It's a remix by Rough Doug, who is a regular, even a resident, you could say, at Pikes. He's been playing here quite a lot this summer, and in Ibiza a fair bit, often over here, all the way from sunny Manchester. This is his remix of Jim's Oxygen. Jim being James Barron of Crazy P with the live band now, which is touring, I believe, in the UK. Superb album, and a few great remixes been dropping, not least the ones by Crooked Man Parrot, but this one brand new by Rough Doug, Oxygen. Coming up in about 7 minutes time or so, Greg Wilson's going to be joining me, play some tunes and have a chat about music and stuff, specifically related to his book, The Discotheque Archives. That's after this from Jim.
feels like home. Dream
new remix by Rough Doug, our good friend Simon Ruffy of James Barron's Oxygen, taken from the original version is on his debut album, out touring it at the moment. And now for the second half of the show, something kind of special, or very special today. Got one of my favourite DJs and a lovely man here with us, Greg Wilson, who's playing in Freddy's later tonight as part of the Pool Agency event. Greg's going to be in Freddy's. But we're going to be talking and listening to music. We're going to be talking about music that Greg selected to feature in his book, Discotheque Archives, which originally came out, I think, in 2020 and has just been reissued with extended. Greg, turn your mic on. Can you hear me? All right.
I can hear you, but without headphones.
That's all right. You sound good to me.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. Yeah. So, Discotheque Archives. I got a copy of it, I think, in 2020 when the initial run. It was only a few hundred, wasn't it?
No, I mean, it was supposed to be a few hundred. I was hoping that we could maybe do. If we could have done 500, I would have been so happy. Then put it up for orders, and the orders went through the roof, and I ended up capping it at 1,600 copies.
Right.
In the end, and at that point, I'd made the decision that I wanted to extend it and get it out in hardback. Initially, I thought I could do that the next year, but it was like a 2-year gap, to 2022. I mean, we were trying to get out at the end of 2021, but because of many factors involved with postage strikes and all sorts of stuff going on at the time, we got it out early 2022. And I mean, it's been great. We've done really well with it, and it's really nice to have something so well received by people. So
the original book came about through the articles that you were writing for DJ Magazine throughout the 2018, 2019 ish, short pieces of 400, 500 words about featured club, important clubs in the history of dance music, and important records, important DJs, important labels, and now you've extended it as you've got new pieces, new features in there.
I mean, I think it was around 2016 I did the DJ series that they'd asked me, they'd approached me to do some kind of historic type article in there, like on a monthly basis. And when I thought of it, I thought it'd work best rather than one big thing over 2 pages to break it down into 4 sections, to have it more bite-sized because of the audience as well, and a younger audience of DJ Magazine. I was aware of that. And so the whole idea was to give as much kind of information within that short amount of words that you had, and hope that infuses people, that then they might maybe go online and look further and find out more, or even read more books, because there's some fantastic books out there about the history of dance culture, but usually very specific to a particular time or area, whereas what I'm doing, even though it's like pre-rave, so I don't go really past 1986 with it. It covers right from the 60s and the inception of like DJs and dance music coming into a kind of club setting, into a venue and everything. So it's really giving that grounding and foundation on what went before, what we have now, where it led from.
Yeah, and we're listening to Brass Construction in the background. So you featured throughout the book, there's featured tracks which are kind of game changers, I guess, or...
Well, I mean, there's 4 sections: classic DJ, classic label, classic venue, classic record. Sometimes they can be used in a way to enable me to get more information about other things into play. So the record selection was the most... I could have selected any number of records, but how I generally did it was that enabled me to tell another part of the larger story. Just like with so for example, with the DJs, I might have Larry Levan. Well, I have Larry Levan, but I don't have Paradise Garage, because I tell the story of Paradise Garage with Larry Levan, and so I'm trying to fit as much information within the sections, and sometimes the records were a help in enabling me to open up something that I couldn't have maybe got otherwise, in a sense.
So what about Brass Construction then? A fantastic group.
Well, I mean, I remember this album myself when it was the first import album that I bought. I would have been 15. I just started DJing in the clubs. It was like early 90s. I think the album came out late 75. I bought a copy in early 76, I think. And you know, it was a revolutionary album at the time. People don't realise how influential it was. I mean, it certainly on the British music, bands like High Tension, Light of the World, their sound was very much infused by that Brass Construction. And also, as an underground album, it actually got into the, I think, UK Top 20 purely on DJ support. There was nothing going on radio in the UK or anything. So, like, the DJs just so got behind that album. It's particularly moving and changing as well. And so, you know, and it was Randy Mueller, the guy behind it, a young guy. He'd worked with BT Express, Do It Till You're Satisfied, and he was like basically kind of arranging like the brass sections and everything, and then Brass Construction, you know, he started that, and they went on to have like a career of multi-albums and everything, but that first album just stands aside as something really special.
Yeah, love it. All right, well, let's take a break from the chat and let people listen to the music, and we'll talk about this one in a few minutes.
Okay.
Wonderful, evocative tunes. We're talking with Greg Wilson here, who's over in Ibiza to DJ tonight, and Fred is, and has recently republished his book Discotheque Archives in an extended version in hardback, full of fantastic stories and information about important classic clubs, DJs, labels and records, and we're listening to some of those classic records now. Here's Disco Beauty. Greg, tell us about, because you started DJing about 1975, yeah?
Well, yeah, I started in the clubs at that point. I'd just been a mobile DJ before then, but it was only for a few months, and I was fortunate to be in a situation where one of the main clubs locally where I live, on a Saturday night we were doing a mobile kind of, we're doing a wedding or something upstairs. We were only, like, as I say, 15. It's crazy thinking back. Somebody trusting us to do their wedding. But the manager from downstairs came up and said the DJ hadn't turned up and could one of us come down, and I was down like a shot. And I could do it then because a lot of clubs had their own records.
Yeah.
So we could split the records. They bought their own. So I got the job. I got a regular Saturday night when I was 15 there, and that by the time I was 16 I was also working at another club. So I was still at school and I was working like 5, 6, sometimes 7 nights a week, not being able to get in because I was knackered and everything, and so I was kind of very early to it. And it's not like now where you maybe do a couple of gigs at a weekend or something. It was constant because you had to, because DJs, when I started I got £6 a night, and that was the going rate, and I was quite happy with that, So a few nights, I could earn as much as somebody on an apprenticeship or something like that.
But for buying records, you wouldn't be able to buy too many records, would you, unless you played every night?
Well, the records thing, and I talk about this in the book, a really amazing thing happened. Again, I'd only just started DJing, I was 16, and there used to be a DJ on Radio 1 called Emperor Roscoe, and he was my favourite because he played black music, he played soul and funk, rock as well, but he was also an American, and he spoke in the style of like Wolfman Jack, the famous American DJ, and very lyrical in his kind of, and he did a few albums for Atlantic Records. So Roscoe was somebody I looked to, and he had a book out, the Emperor Roscoe DJ book, and I bought a copy of it and I read through it, and a lot of it was about radio. It wasn't so much geared towards the club DJ. There was a little bit, they call them disco DJs, but I read in there that if a DJ was playing to enough people and wrote to a record company, they might send them free records. And I couldn't believe this was great. And then at the end of the book, in the appendix, it has all the addresses and phone numbers of the record companies. So I was on the phone for the next few days ringing everyone, find out it's called a club promotion department. And bit by bit, over the next 9-12 months, I got on every label. So I was getting, CBS, which is now Sony, Warner Brothers, Polydor, Phonogram, all these great labels that were releasing all the music were sending the music to me, not only free, but 4 to 6 weeks ahead of UK release, so you had them. And so that really kind of set me up, that I was able then to use the money for buying records to buy imports, so which are more expensive and everything, because all the British releases I was getting for free, or the vast majority. And so that was a real kind of a gift from heaven that I was given with that book, and enabled me to get on all. And then as a result of that, I go to London and meet all the club promotions people. They take me on the rounds with them, so I saw a lot of the main clubs that were happening in London in the late 70s and stuff, and got to know all the people that were involved in the business. And all these all these club promotion people, or a lot of them, would later, as things moved along, and the record companies realised that this dance music was selling, the records were going in the charts without radio support and everything. And that's where British music started to evolve, and these club promotion people evolved into A&R people, and club labels started to emerge in the early 80s in the UK.
Yeah, 12-inch records and
Yeah, and so it was all as a part of that lineage
Yeah.
that was going on. And going back to club promotion as well, you know, people talk about the record pools in New York, famously, you know, but there were club promotion departments in the UK before there were record pools in America. They were going back into, I think, a guy called 𝐷𝐼 𝐃𝐲 at Phonogram in 1973 was said to be the first person to set up a mailing list specifically for club disco DJs as opposed to radio, you know.
Yeah, well before Judy Weinstein and the New York.
Yeah, you know, I mean, there was a deep lineage in UK dance culture that, because of the obsession with Black American music, that goes back to, you know, the mods and everything. Goes back early if you want to kind of trace it back.
So. Yeah, my dad used to go to Burton Wood Air Base for dances in, which is not far from where you come from,
Absolutely.
is it? In northwest, in between Liverpool and Manchester, where a lot of Black American. Air Force guys were there, and they were getting all the imports in, and there was I mean, my dad was from the kind of jazz bebop into that era 50s. We're talking about in early 60s, and there was places to go. There is a big lineage of that, isn't there?
Well, about Burton Wood and other air bases, but specifically Burton Wood. There was a club in Liverpool, again in the book, called the Timepiece, and they did all-nighters, monthly all-nighters there. And they would have black GIs from all over the country, but obviously Burton Wood was closer, coming in to the Timepiece for the nights, for the weekends R&R, basically. And Les Spain, the DJ there, would be booked to go and play on the air bases. And he said it was mad. He was paid in dollars and stuff, and he was like going into them. You drove on the other side of the road. There were record shops. There was all sorts going on. And so, you know, that culture of the air base, and to give you another kind of story on that level, to really give you the depth of how that influenced what happened in the UK, was Dave Godin, who is the person who coined the term Northern Soul. Before that, he was like the head of the Tamla Motown Appreciation Society. There was no such label as Tamla Motown. Motown in the States was different labels like Motown, Gordy, Soul, VIP, Tamla. They're all on different labels under the umbrella of Motown. Whereas in the UK, he started this Tamla Motown Appreciation Society, which brought all these labels together. And eventually, that's how they were released in the UK. And Tamla, we didn't even say Motown, we said Tamla, was a phenomenon. I mean, it was like the music of the mods, and then it went mainstream, and it became this huge commercial force. It was really the first disco music in many, many respects. So, like, you know, Tamla Motown was to do with Dave Godin and pushing this and everything. Now, where it starts with him, you know, he's like a white guy who had been moved into the suburbs of London to a place called Bexley Heath, I think it is, or Bexley Hill. I always get those two mixed up. And he went into an ice cream parlour when he was a young teenager. And he said, this is 1953, and he heard this record, and I think it was Ruth Brown, Mama, He Treats Your Daughter Mean. And it was this raw R&B record, and he said he'd never heard the likes of it, because the pop music, so to speak, in England at the time was so twee and throwaway, and how much is that doggy in the window, and this was real adult raw emotion, and it really struck him. And he asked the lads who were playing it at the jukebox, what is this? And they said it's rhythm and blues. They gave him some shillings to put in and try some more tracks, and that really shaped his whole movement towards black music. And he's one of the major figures in Britain in terms of you know, highlighting black American music, and it comes from this ice cream parlour. Now, what's the jukebox doing there with Mama, He Treats Your Daughter Mean? The reason it's there is because there was a nearby air base, and they sell things on. The jukebox had gone, it had all its records in it, and that's what he was listening to. It comes straight out the air bases. And Brian Eno, I heard him tell a very similar story about his introduction to R&B, again via a jukebox that had music from an American airbase. So this is how the music started to seep through in the initial stages. I mean, obviously it had the jazz that had come through, like, and at wartime there was a lot of black GIs who were dancing like jitterbug style and everything, and that obviously impacted and influenced the British people who saw that, especially the girls probably. And so, you know, it was all there as well. But that infusion in the kind of 50s into the 60s, it's a particular British obsession with black music.
Yeah.
And he epitomises it.
Yeah. Well, let's take a little break from the chat and listen to Liquid in the background. I'd like to ask you about this record, because this covers a lot of bases and development, doesn't it? So let's have this, it's a bit of music. Estamos hablando con Greg Wilson aquí en Pikes Ibiza para nuestro directo que hacemos cada semana. Greg, una leyenda de la evolución de la música en Inglaterra, uno de los DJs originales que todavía está pinchando mucho, y ha escrito un libro, Discotheque Archives, una colección de sus artículos sobre discotecas, discos, DJs y sellos discográficos, con mucha importancia en el desarrollo de nuestro escenario. So, Greg, in the background, we've got Liquid, which the record came out of New York. And, well, I'll let you tell the story, because it's one of the tracks that's featured in the book, isn't it? And
well, I mean, it's featured, it's referenced in the book rather than featured, but it comes under, like, the Sugar Hill thing, because this was a track that broke 2 labels, the Liquid track. Basically, what happened was that original track that we just heard, Cavern, they put out, was a kind of underground. It was on a label called 99, which was like seen as like a no-wave label. This is our track, and it ended up in a really ugly lawsuit.
It was on Sugar Hill, wasn't it?
It
White
was
Line,
Sugar Hill. They didn't mess around. There was a bit of gangsterism there in the background, and it basically ended up, I think that Sugar Hill bankrupted themselves at a certain point, and it brought down 99 as well. So 2 of New York's most important kind of underground labels at the time went as a result of the infringements on that track.
Yeah, and that was in those days. It was early. Well, sampling was a kind of a new thing as well, wasn't it? I mean, they went and totally re-recorded the track, didn't they?
They did. Yeah, I mean, going back with Sugar Hill with Rapper's Delight, the same thing happened. Was that the house band, who were people like Doug Wimbush and Skip McDonald, who later turned up with Tackhead, and these kind of people were part of that house band. So they recorded the back end, so they did like Good Times for Rapper's Delight, and so like really accomplished kind of house musicians and stuff. And
but they didn't pay Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards for many years, did they?
No, I mean, I don't think things like royalties were taken into account in these situations by a lot of people. It was a bit the Wild West in many. I mean, with sampling as well. I mean, when something like Grandmaster Flash and the Wheels of Steel came out, it was like I couldn't work it out. It was like
so many tracks in there. Yeah,
what's going on? How does this work? Because we didn't understand this idea of turntablism. We hadn't seen it. So that record, when it came out, was just an anomaly. I mean, it's great fun, but it didn't have a place. Yeah. And weirdly, it wasn't played on the black music scene. And the reason it wasn't played, because the black music scene could be a bit snobby, and it was all about new releases and new things. And the fact that they'd cut into it, Blondie, Rapture, Another One Bites the Dust Queen, disqualified it. but for the people in kind of black music clubs to hear like what they saw as a pop track, it would have been no. So it never initially, but when in '83 the whole kind of scratching and cutting vibe came through, then it was revamped, and everybody, you know, saw the light. You know, one of the great records of the 20th century in many ways. You know, for what it did.
Yeah, one of my favourites. And here we've got Herbie Hancock with Rocket, which was the first. Well, you tell me, maybe was it the first big electro hit? Because at the time that this came out, obviously Herbie Hancock, well-respected jazz musician who played with Miles Davis and everything for years, but always advancing, always looking for the new thing. When this record came out, it became a big hit. MTV as well, wasn't it? But you were already championing this music, which caused quite a rift in the kind of black music scene, isn't it? Especially as you're talking about purists not wanting to play Adventures on the Wheels of Steel. When the first electronic records were coming out of New York from some of the same musicians, and labels have been doing more disco and funk, a lot of DJs and clubbers rejected it, didn't they?
Well, I mean, yeah, the kind of old school mentality didn't like the idea of this new electronic music. To them, it wasn't soulful. It didn't have that connection that they felt it should have. It was machine music. Why, you know, like Planet Rock, which, you know, Planet Rock comes a good while before Rocket. You know, like back in '82, and there was a lot of tracks being played, underground tracks. Some crossed over and became not massive hits, but certainly, you know, made their mark and everything. But what Rocket did, that mentality where people were saying this electronic isn't proper music, it kind of wiped that away, because Herbie Hancock was the massively respected jazz musician who everybody on that scene, you know, because if you go back to the start of the jazz funk era, you can go back into Chameleon on Headhunters from 1973. So there he is at the origins of jazz funk as a format. Now, 10 years on, he's using all this electronic music. He's got a DJ cutting and scratching. And so that took away the argument from a lot of people that it was this mindless thing that was going on. And also what it did massively was the following year it won a Grammy, and they performed it at the ceremony, the award ceremony, and that was the first time mainstream America had seen cutting and scratching. And that's where people like DJ Shadow for the first time saw somebody, because Grand Mixer DST was there on the decks. So as a cultural moment for America, that was massive. We had a different cultural moment for breakdancing and cutting and scratching and everything like that, which was Buffalo Gals, Malcolm McLaren, because that was like a British artist and a massive hit here, and a revolution because it had 4 elements of hip-hop in one video for the first time, and it showed us scratching. But the weird thing, the quirk about that was we knew so little about it that in that video, the world's famous Supreme team, guys in New York, they're cutting a 7-inch single. And I remember thinking at the time, does it have to be a 7-inch? You know, and it just happened to be, you know. So we were we had so little information, and then all of a sudden it all opens up and we can see exactly what's going on and how it's all working. So that period before that, you know, we're talking about when I was playing this music, it was kind of in an isolation. I was bringing this music into this scene. I was still playing more orthodox funk, soul, always bits of jazz. It was never just one way, but the electro became the predominant sound of what I was doing there. And I took a lot of flack for that, and it was awkward for me because I was a young 22, 23-year-old, full of ego, wanting a pat on the back because my nights were packed out and I was winning awards in blues and soul. And people were saying, you're polluting the scene, you're ruining it with this music, and it was difficult, you know, because I respected, these were my peers, and I, you know, but eventually it's like with any kind of schism, you know, things work themselves out, and the old doesn't like to let go too easily because people have vested interests, they have successful club nights, they make money, they do different things, and now all of a sudden that's being shaken up because some young DJs playing these electronic tracks and their crowd starting to ask them for it, you know, and it's pressuring them. So yeah, eventually it kind of worked itself out, but for a while it was awkward. But the audience was always there with me, and that was the main thing.
And I think you were the first DJ to be on TV mixing two records together, weren't you? On the
On
Tube
British
with
TV.
David Joseph, two copies of I Can't Hide Your Love.
That was right, yeah.
What year was that?
83.
Right.
February 83.
So that was the first time most people...
That's the first demonstration of live mixing on British television, and very, very scary at the time. I mean, I know people do boiler rooms and all sorts of stuff now. All gives me the horrors because of that time, because hearing somebody say to you, 10 seconds to on air, you've got your decks set up, you've got a cameraman with a handheld, and he's whizzing close to your decks. And I'm thinking, please, please don't, because everything's queued up. And when he says go, I know where I am. And so I started it, and the cameraman bumped it, and it didn't jump. Because Jules Holland actually says in the commentary, the cameraman's just, I hope that doesn't give him problems. But it didn't. I luckily got away with it and went through it, did it. It all went well. David Joseph came on afterwards, live from Camden Palace in London. So he had a double dose of, publicity. And that record became a big hit, and then was later remixed by Levan in America, and it's a track we all know now. But and that came about because we used to have artists come into the clubs I did to do personal appearances, and we didn't even pay for them. The record companies brought them. We had people like Gwen Guthrie, Oliver Cheetham, Kool and the Gang, all the British artists, Imagination, Light of the World, David Joseph, obviously. Now, when David Joseph came, the Tube, the TV show, knew that he was going to... And they were based in Newcastle rather than London. So Legend in Manchester was closer for them to come and just check him out and see what he was doing. And what I was doing at that point, I'd started to mix. And again, only a very small amount of DJs in the UK were mixing. We didn't have the equipment, but Legend did, Wigan Pier did. I had the equipment. Now I was kind of taking this direction. I used to get 2 copies of the same record. I'd say to the record company, can you send me 2 of that? And they'd send me 2 through, and I'd switch between the 2, it's like a little kind of on-the-fly edit when I think about it. And I was doing it that night when the Tube researchers were in, and they heard me do that, and they were like, would you like to come in and do that, on the show? And at first you go, yeah, of course, it's great, yeah. And then you think, oh my God, what have I just signed up for? What if this goes wrong? I'm going to look up, and that's how it was, because no one had ever done that before in that sense. So, but fortunately, it all went to plan, and
it was a big moment. Anybody who's listening who hasn't seen that, is go on. It was on the Tube. Now you can find it on YouTube, I'm sure, and catch that. Greg introducing the art of DJ mixing to the British public. That was a Friday evening, wasn't it? The Tube. It was like everybody.
It was, yeah.
Everyone
it was a huge show. Everyone tuned in.
Well, let's listen to a bit more music and take a little break and have a drink. We're talking to Greg Wilson here, in case you just joined us, who is here to DJ in Freddy's tonight for the pool party at Pikes, and has kindly agreed to join us for the Balearic Brunch and chat about all kinds of things, really. But in relation to Discotheque Archives, which has a new edition of it, came out at the end of last year or early this year. I highly recommend that book to anybody with any kind of interest in our musical culture. Absolutely crucial record for the hip-hop, the development of hip-hop, really. I think Cool DJ Herc used to play 2 copies of that, didn't he?
Well, that was one of his famous merry-go-round breaks, Apache, one of the most famous, incredible bongo band from an album that came out, I think, 73, called Bongo Rock. Weirdly, Apache was never played in the UK. I think Bongo Rock, I mean, it's just a bit before I started DJing. I think Bongo Rock, which is on the album, did get played, and I know that Kool Herc played that as well. But Apache didn't, and I kind of guess the reason why was the association with Apache in the UK was the Shadows, and Cliff Richard and the Shadows, and so it wasn't seen as a very cool kind of association. Whereas really, you know, the Shadows was a cover version. It was, I forgot who originally recorded, American recording. But that recording by the incredible bongo band, I mean, with the breakdown and everything, is awesome. Now, we first heard that in '83, really through Breakdance Electric Boogie by West Street Mob, which, when we talk about early sampling or whatever, that is definitely, you know, one of the things. And yeah, that took us back to Apache. Before that, you know, whereas in the Bronx, obviously, it was one of the standard tunes of what was played. And now, you know, you can hear it, you know, like in terms of its effect on hip-hop, along with other tracks like, you know, It's Just Begun, Jimmy Castor Bunch was like a famous track of that, James Brown, Give It Up and Turn It Loose, and all sorts of stuff. So that was the foundation. I mean, we just had 50 years since his famous party.
Yeah.
You know,
I was at first I was like, how come hip-hop be 50 years old by then? I suppose you got to start somewhere, haven't you? And
yeah, I mean, that's what it's been dated to. People would say, well, you know, is that right? Maybe there's different time. There's even arguments within New York whether things were happening in Brooklyn earlier and these things linked together. But I think, you know, it's as good a moment.
Yeah, well,
as
Cool
anything.
DJ Herc definitely deserves the props for being
absolutely.
originator.
And that moment kind of brought it all together, and the idea of the sound system as well, that kind of
the Jamaican
sensibility he had, and bringing this into, you know, like the Badlands of New York. And complete, you know, with the breaks, obviously that was done in line of the dancers. They were the people. He noticed that when the breaks of the record hit, that the dancers basically went mad, went off. They call it going off, and breaking, or to break, people think it's the break of the record. It's not the break of the record. Even when breakdancing coming to the UK, people thought it's called breakdancing because you broke your bones. It was where it come. What the break is. It's a New York saying where somebody reaches their breaking points. They go off. They go off, and that's the dancers going to the floor and everything. And he witnessed this, and then started to kind of put the breaks together to keep that energy for longer period. And out of that, you know, a culture starts to really emerge and develop. And so it is as good a time as any, as opposed to nail a date down in a sense.
Well, this is another fascinating record, because this is people talk about cultural appropriation like it's a bad thing sometimes, but take a record like this that has been appropriated, or the original song. This is this Candido version.
Yes.
Yeah, Candido Jingo Bala. Yeah. And it's the original track that inspired this was from the 60s, wasn't it?
Well, it was
early 60s.
I think 59, Drums of Passion. It was from Jingo Bola, and then that was a weird kind of hit in America. You know, when I look back through the records, it was very successful in America, so it's a kind of outlier track. But then later down the line, Santana covered it, and Santana were a massive
Played
band.
It at Woodstock, didn't they?
They did,
the Woodstock film,
and so that kind of popularised it. But this version, I mean, for me, it's one of the greatest disco records, because you could play this at any time, in any era, in any age, and it's got that special kind of.
It's got the funk.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to put it, but you know, and the guy himself, Candido, who only died a few years ago. I think he got to 99 or something. He might even got to 100, but he was like around that age. And he goes way back to the 40s and stuff. And I was talking about this with somebody the other day, that the percussion came in from the South American countries. You know, you have jazz and everything, and the drum kit comes through and stuff like that, and rhythm was working a certain way, but there wasn't the percussion until the kind of Latin musicians in the probably late 30s, 40s started to bring this into New York, and then we start to get this, and that infusion into music would have such a big effect on dance music, because of the polyrhythms and stuff that's going on. And so he was one of the most recorded session musicians.
This is on Salsoul. Yeah. What year did this come out? Do you remember?
This came out in 70. I want to say 79. It could have been 78, but I think it's 79. Salsoul was Salsa Soul. It was a label that was set up basically because there was a huge kind of Latin community in New York. They were into salsa music originally. But Joe Bataan, who was a famous salsa artist, did a track called Salsoul, and then that became the name of the label, and then it moved more towards disco and became this classic disco, along with Philadelphia International in the first half of the decade, and Salsoul. And the reason why the two labels are so connected is because the core musicians who played on the Great Philadelphia records in the early 70s were also the core musicians who played on the Salsoul. So you have like Baker Harris Young, which was the rhythm section of the Tramps, and the drummer Earl Young is seen as being the inventor of the disco beats or groove or whatever. And you had Vincent Montana Jr., who was the arranger and the vibes player. Now, Philadelphia had a fallout with the musicians. They had an orchestra of musicians, and overpay, as things usually are. Salsoul at that moment had just got a load of money from one of the big record companies to kind of launch, and basically came in, plucked off some of the best musicians and pulled them over to the label. And so Earl Young, that drummer who you hear on The Love I Lost by Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, is also on 10%, the first 12-inch single by Double Exposure. His beat underpins so many amazing records from that period. So that connection between Philadelphia and International and Salsoul, is very strong because of the musicians that were involved. And both Philadelphia was the more successful commercially. It had much more hits like, Harold Melvin, Billy Paul, the 3 Degrees, of course. We heard MFSB, The Sound of Philadelphia before, which was the theme music for the TV show Soul Train. So Philadelphia was like taken on from Motown as being the big black music kind of dance disco.
Yeah, international
label.
hits, yeah.
Whereas Salsoul always had a little bit more of an underground essence to it. A lot of its most famous tracks weren't big hits at the time, but have endured and are still being played now. So
yeah. Okay, let's listen to the track a bit and talk again in a minute. So, Greg, God, that hour's gone very quickly. We've only got about 7 or 8 minutes left. What we've got is the mix going to get us through till the end. Yeah, 6.5 minutes should do. Tell us what you've got lined up for the rest of the year. You've had a busy summer, I guess, doing festivals and what we've done to your mic. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've just got the summer over now. It's been a busy month, you know. I've been away to Croatia just last weekend, here, up to Lisbon at the weekend, back, got a few things in the UK to do with the book as well. I'm doing a couple of gigs, one with Colin Curtis, who's one of the DJs mentioned in the book, in Stoke, which is his hometown. Very, very famous. If you've never heard of Colin Curtis, he is undoubtedly one of the most important British DJs ever. You know, his connection with Northern Soul, jazz, funk, and early house and everything. So it's been great to bring people like that to the fore, because Colin, I was saying to somebody recently, the reason he isn't as known is that he would never fly. So basically, if he would have gone to Japan, he would have been massive, you know, for his jazz alone, you know. But because he hasn't flown, he kind of became an obscure character. But more recently, through like Giles Peter's station, Worldwide FM, people starting to kind of wake up, and he's doing compilation albums again. It's great, you know, because his legacy is just so huge, and so it'd be good to do that in Stoke. I've got another one in London coming up, and then just the DJ gigs in general. So yeah, you know what it's like. It's like the year keeps moving on.
I wanted to ask you as well, actually, because now I've had a couple of remixes recently that you've done with your son Shay.
Yeah.
So have you been DJing together as well, or does Shay DJ? Or?
Well, we did a Confidence Man gig because we remixed a couple of Confidence Man singles. So that's the only time we DJ together to date. He DJs, you know, he DJs separately, like from me, of course. We did Gabriel's Love and Hate.
Yes, I've been playing that. That's great.
Which is fantastic, you know.
Such a great act.
We're just at the minute working on a remix for the Happy Mondays. Are doing a package of some of the classic remixes like WFL, Hallelujah, and we're doing a mix of Loose Fits. So,
brilliant.
So yeah, that's currently, you know, on the desk and ready for completion and everything. So yeah, you know, I mean, gigs, a DJ, writing, you know, obviously I've got another project that I want to kind of push ahead. It takes so long writing, you know, I keep trying to think, I can do it within this period of time, and I've just got no idea, you know, because I'm new to this in many respects, you know, and so things take a little bit longer than you hope. But I'm writing a book about basically British jazz funk and what we call Brit funk. You know, that scene that emerged, that a lot of British artists came out of in the late 70s, early 80s, and giving some kind of clarity and depth to that. So that's the next book project that I've got going, and yeah, I think I'm busy enough as it is. So.
yeah, you're very incredibly prolific. It's great that you share your knowledge to the wider community, because you've been a key figure for so long. It's great that you take the time to share that, and it's important that people, like you say, well, there's a great quote on the back of the book, if I can read it without my glasses: to know the future, first you must know the past.
Yeah, well, that was the kind of tagline for the whole thing, because it is about that. I mean, if you understand what went before, you can make good forecasts about what are going to happen in the future. I mean, that's not with music, you know, with anything, with history. You can look at history and see how things evolve and where things kind of loop and stuff like that. And so to have a grounding on what went before, and a proper grounding, because often there's misinformation, and you can have an idea, for example, that rave is directly connected to Northern Soul because, you know, it was like fast up-tempo music, drugs were being taken, people danced all night. But there was a big gap between the end of the Northern Soul scene as we knew it. You know, it did kind of survive and, you know, resuscitate itself. And when rave started, and all that was to do with like the kind of black music culture, the clubs that were playing things like electro, early house, hip hop, these things, you know, it was all about the now and new music and what was going on then. And so if you don't have those histories in place, you make assumptions that are wrong. and that completely changes what your vision of how this culture that we have has grown. And you know, I want to understand it fully. I want to get to the roots and kind of bring that out, and hopefully I can share that with people, because it's a passion of mine, and I know that other people are passionate about it too. So
yeah. Well, thanks, Greg. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
And always a pleasure to speak to you, Andy.
Thank you, and thanks for taking the time to put the mix together, because I was thinking, how am I going to make this work with Greg to play some tunes and then talk? It would have been
more a sound bed than a mix. But all tunes relevant to the book.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. Okay, guys, I'm going to say goodbye in a minute. Many thanks to Greg, and if you're in Ibiza, Greg will be DJing here at Pikes later tonight as part of the pool agency party. Lou Hater also here, Matty J and Ben Terry, Snow, Jacob Amos. Lots of great music guaranteed for the rest of till 4 o'clock in the morning here at Pikes. So from the Balearic Brunch by Bombay Sapphire, I'll say goodbye. Next week we've got Dickie Trisco as our special guest. Baz will be playing here at Pikes on Sunday for the collaboration with the Beat Hotel, and he will be joining us on Tuesday for the Balearic Brunch. So I think 𝐷𝐷𝐰𝐳𝐬 is going to finish a little bit before we finish the show. How long we got, Nano? 2 minutes? Okay, let's see what we've got here. Let's have a bit of Roisin, a guest on the Balearic Brunch last year. Her new album is absolutely fantastic, produced by DJ 𝐃𝐩𝐬𝐳. Here's a track from that to see us out today. And many thanks to Greg Wilson for his time and everything he does for the dance music community. Thanks for listening. Adios. Probably prepared something appropriate to carry on with.